Okay, but what about the fact that China is the largest holder of US bonds and T-notes? It's a fine balance of power, really, isn't it?
Well, actually, the last time I looked, Japan had slightly larger shares of U.S. Treasuries. So China has the largest foreign exchange reserves. So if we look at the overall picture, that's right. Treasuries, Japan is a little bit bigger. But obviously, China is playing a major role now in the world economy, both on the trade side and on the capital side, foreign exchange reserves and increasingly outbound investment. It's a player now.
But what would be the tipping point? I mean, do you see that there will be a time when China will rebalance away from the US dollar and into other currencies, like, say, the euro?
Well, I think that's already been happening. But, of course, the question is, where can you go when you have that large amount of foreign exchange reserves? The dollar has obviously some risk, but it's actually the dollar has been appreciating somewhat. So it's still seen as the safest place for people to park their money at a time of uncertainty. So the question is not whether you have doubts about the dollar, but whether you have fewer doubts about other currencies into which you might put your money. The Chinese are diversifying, yes, but slowly, not quickly, and not fundamentally.
All right, let's look broadly at China. Now, the central government's really facing a difficult future politically.
Yes.
How do you think it should harness growth and keep control without hobbling its society?
Well, I think right now they are very concerned about growth. It's amazing to think that only a few months ago, at the beginning of the year, their main concern was inflation. Then it was inflation and growth, and now it's growth as the worldwide recession hits. And as you said earlier in the program, they've been implementing a whole series of various kinds of stimulus packages, starting with interest rate cuts, reserve requirement cuts, value-added tax rebates on exports, and now this fairly large fiscal stimulus package that is going to be implemented. It's clear that this is going to be a political problem for China. As I said, we're already seeing an uptick in protests over workers being laid off, on top of all the other things that have gotten people concerned about land use rights and so forth. So the Chinese do not have a particularly a political system that's based on ways for people to express their grievances short of protest. It's based very much on performance, and that performance is probably going to flag at the end of this year and into next.
But it's interesting, Professor Harding, because I mean, I'm interested to know if you think the central government has a plan, because it appears that there's not only a disconnect between China's extreme new wealth and those who remain in desperate poverty, it also appears that the government's current manifesto is not one of traditional communism, where there's equality for all. In other words, the government really does seem happy to let the class division grow there.
Well, certainly they have allowed it to grow. China has gone in the last 30 years from being one of the most equal societies in the world to one of the most unequal. They are concerned about it. They talk about a more harmonious society. Their last meeting of the Party Central Committee back in the fall did announce some steps that were trying to raise rural incomes, because the urban-rural gap is one of those inequalities, not the only one, but one of them. But the progress is going to be slow.
All right. Unfortunately, Professor Harding, we've run out of time. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.